If you go to the gym or lift weights like me, then you'll be interested in the topic I'm going to cover today in this video. So pay attention. Not everyone knows this, but there's actually a better way to lift weights to multiply results in the gym and basically get more done in the same amount of time working out. So without increasing the amount of time in the gym or the number of sets, you can get more results if you follow the 5 points in this video. There are a million benefits to being strong and in shape, including energy and mood, endurance, and obviously attraction from the opposite sex. There's a whole timeline of benefits across the months and years that you spend exercising, but it can take a while. And so if you want to shorten that a little bit and speed up the progress, which I'm sure you do, then stick around and watch the video to the end and implement what you learned today. There are 5 different methods to multiply gains. 1 is do cluster sets. 2, choose compound exercises. 3, perform contrast training. 4, leverage drop sets, supersets, and giant sets. And 5, always progressive overload. Number 1 is to do cluster sets. I didn't know about cluster sets at first, but they're a powerful way to push more weight and get more volume in without increasing the number of sets. So cluster sets are essentially breaking up traditional sets, let's say like a set of 8, into sort of mini sets with mini rests in between. So what that means is instead of doing a set of 8 traditionally, maybe on the bench press, you break that up into sets of just 2 reps with higher weight and a 15-second rest in between. The obvious benefit to this is higher training volume and intensity. I can obviously push more weight if I'm only doing 2 reps and then a small rest in between. But with this method, instead of essentially getting less reps in and doing like a subpar set, right? Because 2 reps is not a lot. With this method of only having a tiny rest before you continue, you can essentially push higher weights than you normally could for a set and also get in a good number of reps, which increases the total volume by a lot. Obviously, fatigue is also reduced during the movements, and you get better explosive power because your explosive power doesn't wane after you do like 4 reps. So you can basically do 2 incredibly with like perfect form explosive reps of, say, bench press, mini rest, and then continue back at it. It also reduces overall rest time. So because you're doing mini rests in between and your fatigue is lowered, you don't have to have like the longer rest afterwards, the normal rest after your set. And so the time efficiency of the workout can also go down by a little bit. And perhaps the best benefit of all is that this is a plateau busting movement. So if you have a really bad plateau and you just can't go up in weight on like the bench press, right? This movement helps you push greater weights for a sort of like almost like a high rep movement, right? Like, because you get in the high rep range, which is like 8 to 12. So you can do that, but you can also work in the higher weight. And so it gets your body more used to pushing heavier weights, but you also do a large number of reps. So it's a very novel movement that sort of helps your body to grow and adapt in ways that the normal like traditional movements, the normal traditional sets just don't. So I haven't tried this out extensively. So instead of replacing all sets throughout the exercise with this, I would focus on a few movements where it makes sense. Bench press is one, right? Compound movements, squats is probably another one. Stuff where you want to go heavy, but you don't want to do really tiny sets like 4 reps. You want to get in good reps, but also heavy weight. So, maybe 1 or 2 exercises per day of your split is a good balance. By the way, I explain all of this in detail in my full program. It's the top link in the description. So I teach you everything about getting an aesthetic physique, how to work out properly, all of it. There's so much valuable info I can't possibly put into a YouTube video. You will benefit a lot from just clicking the link, checking out the info, like just sort of reading the benefits and what you would get and seeing if it's for you. And then, obviously if it doesn't seem like it's for you, you can come back here, close the tab, come back here. But I think you would benefit a lot because I go really in depth. I expand on so much to really bring you value and make sure that you get an aesthetic body that you love. Whereas like with like this talking head sort of format, there's not much I can do, but my full program will fix that. My full program is way more valuable. So check that out and see if that's something you're interested in. So number 2 is to prioritize compound movements. And this is extremely important because compound movements recruit more muscles per rep. So compound movements, if you don't know, are movements that are more free form. They're not machines. They're not isolation exercises, which are focused on a single muscle, but they're exercises that use a lot of muscles, and they recruit a lot of stabilizer muscles. An example of this is bench press. So with bench press, you're not only working your chest, even though it's a chest exercise. When you sit down on a bench press and you go to push, you're using a lot of your triceps, you're using a lot of your shoulders. It's not just your chest, right? Because obviously the bar isn't held in place like on the machine. And so naturally your entire body has to go into the movement to push that up. And what that means is you're using more muscles with every single rep, as opposed to just one. Think about how inefficient isolation exercises sound in comparison. Like, well, I'm just going to spend time just working one muscle. If I could work 3 or 4 muscle groups instead with one exercise, isn't that way better? Now, isolation exercises have their place. Obviously, they're great for definition and focus on a specific muscle, but compound exercises are by far more supreme. Like, this is a literal multiplication because we are working more than one muscle group. So if you're working 2 muscle groups, that's 2 times the output. If you're working 3 muscles, that's 3 times the output. So yeah, choose compound exercises. Examples are bench press, squats, deadlifts, pull-ups, push-ups, stuff like that. I'm sure you can look up a whole list. If you don't know them, then what you can do is look up a certain exercise that's already on your routine and then look up compound alternatives. Just type it into Google. So number 3 is to perform contrast training. And contrast training is a unique style of working out that combines heavy lifts with explosive movements, sometimes called plyometrics. What this looks like is doing one exercise, one movement, and then directly afterwards doing that explosive movement. And they'll have the exact same biomechanical muscle group, right? So an example of that could be really heavy squats, and then directly after you do squat jumps, explosive squat jumps. This triggers something called post-activation potentiation to produce more force and power. Basically, the heavy lift activates the nervous system, and then the explosive movements take advantage of it. This recruits 2 types of muscle fibers: the fast twitch muscle fibers and the slow twitch muscle fibers. If you don't know about muscle fibers, basically you have a couple of different muscle fiber types in your body that have to do with whether you want faster power or like slower endurance, right? So the fast twitch ones increase power output, right? They're like extremely powerful muscle fibers. It's got the kind of thing that happens during heavy lifts and very like power dependent activities. Whereas the slow twitch are more concerned with endurance and longer stuff like a lot of box jumps, right? Or running, sprinting, not sprinting, but more long distance running and endurance activities. So less power output, but they can go for longer. And when you engage in contrast training, you work both of them. So it's more efficient. The main benefits of contrast training are enhanced strength and power and improved neuromuscular coordination. So basically the nervous system gets more efficient at activating muscles. And the explosive movements of the plyometrics have a lot of benefits on their own. This includes increased muscle power, better speed and agility, improved coordination, and stronger joints and bones. Number 4 is to leverage drop sets, supersets, and giant sets. So first up, drop sets are when you lower the weight instantly after failure or a really tough set, and then you continue for more repetitions. This is a fantastic way to put in more effort with your sets. right? So I know I said we wouldn't be adding more sets to the workout, but this is a great way to sort of, it's got a very low time cost, so it's almost no extra time added to the exercise, and it's got huge upsides, right? Imagine you're on a heavy lift and you fail it, of course, because maybe it's something you want to progressively overload to. You want to get up to this weight, but you just can't quite hit the number of reps you want to. Once you fail, instead of just, I'm done, that sucks, I can't hit it, and then you get off the machine or the bench or whatever. Instead of doing that, lower the weight a little bit and then go for as many reps as you can. You can imagine that'd be like really burning out the muscle group, right? And you don't have to do that just once. After you fail that second set, the drop set, maybe you get 5 reps in or whatever, you can drop that again and do it more, and then maybe you get 10 reps in before you fail. But imagine that. Let's say you failed at 4 reps with your initial weight that you were trying to get to. You just went from what would be like a 4 rep set, lousy 4 rep set, to that's 4 plus 5 plus 10, which is a 19 rep set, which is insane. And even though it was lower weight, your muscles are still like exhausted and fully used up now. I use drop sets a lot throughout my workouts, especially when there's an area of my body that I want to grow at that particular time. So if I feel a certain muscle group is lacking, I'll just drop set a ton on every exercise that I do for that muscle group. Supersets are performing 2 exercises back to back with basically no rest in between. They're usually like opposing or unrelated muscles. And the main benefit of this is that it kind of saves time throughout the workout. So you do 1 set of one thing, another set of the second muscle, and then you go back to the first thing, and then you continue basically like that. So you can imagine you get basically 2 muscle groups worked for the time that it takes normally to work one. And because they're not really related muscle groups, like you're not working the chest with both exercises, that area doesn't really get fatigued, and so you don't need that rest in between. If you really want to kill a muscle group, you can do giant sets, which are 3 or more exercises consecutively for one muscle group with basically no rest in between. So imagine this example for chest. You could be on the bench press and then go directly to push-ups and then go directly to flies with like minimal rest. Maybe you've got 15 seconds rest. And then you go straight back to the bench press. So these giant sets really focus on intensity and just like crushing a muscle group, just like blowing a muscle group out of the water. Number 5 is the one you know, which is to always progressively overload. So in case you didn't know, something called volume, which is total reps times sets times weight, is the primary driver of muscle growth. That's the number one thing that you want to focus on when you're trying to grow a muscle group. So obviously, if you push more weight, which is that last number in the equation, then you're going to get more results. I mean, this is obvious stuff. So always be progressively overloading in everything that you do. Try and add 5 pounds every week to every exercise that you do. Make sure that you're recording what you lifted the previous time that you hit that muscle or that exercise, so that you know what to progressively overload to. That makes it a lot easier. And if you increase the weight bit by bit, it's not too hard on your muscles. It's not like jumping up from a lower weight to a higher weight and then being like, well, I hope I can hit this. No, you go up little by little. I generally progressively overload in one of 2 ways. The first one is to manipulate the reps, and the second one is to manipulate the weight. So in the first example, I manipulate the number of reps, so I lower the number of reps when I get to the higher weight so that I can push more, right? So my standard number of reps is about 10. But when I want to progressively overload in something, I will up that to 12. So I'll work on getting my standard weight up to 12 reps. And then once I can do that, I go up in weight by a little bit and I swap it down to like 8 reps. Or I'll keep it at 10 reps, depending on how I feel. So as opposed to doing my standard weight for 12 reps that day, I'll just do 8 reps of a higher weight, right? And then what I work on is getting that higher weight up to my standard 10 or 12, right? So instead of upping the weight after that, I just work on getting that weight to 12 repetitions. Then once I can do 12 repetitions, I up the weight again, and then I lower the amount of reps. And the second way is to manipulate the sets directly, or rather just the weight. So what I normally do is 3 sets. And if I want to progressively overload in something, I will do my standard weight for the first 2, and then I will do a higher weight for the last one, right? But I'll keep the same amount of reps if I can, but I'll just up the weight by a tiny little bit, right? So that looks like normal weight, and then higher weight. And then the next day I do that, instead of doing normal weight, higher weight, I do normal weight, higher weight, right? And then the next day that rolls around, I can do higher weight, until that becomes my new standard, right? And then after that, I can continue with normal weight, higher weight. And so I'll up it gradually through the last set. I want to share with you a little bit of a bonus, which is some mental tricks to up the weight and progressively overload. First is just have the mindset of just see what you can do. Just put the weight on the bar, just pick up the dumbbell and see how many you can do. Because a lot of times what stops us first is the mental block of like, oh, I can't lift this weight. I'm not strong enough to lift this weight. Well, you haven't even tried yet, you know, especially because we can get into this mindset of like, oh, the current weight is so hard to do, like it's not easy. And then we think, well, if this isn't easy, you know, then the higher weight that I want to get to definitely isn't going to be easy. So I must not be ready for that. What you have to do is just pick up the higher weight and just go for it and see how much you can do, right? Don't let that mental judgment or that mental aversion take control of you. The second is to just practice holding the weight. So a lot of times our bodies, especially when you get a bit more experienced in the gym and the raw amount of the weight is more of a block than just how it feels and how much it burns, then your body often isn't used to lifting that heavy weight. And so I've seen this for bench press. Sometimes what people will do to prepare, and I did this for 225, to prepare for higher weight, is to just unrack the bar and hold it up, right? That's just to get the body used to engaging the chest for that weight, just to get the wrists used to holding that. And it also works wonders for the mind too, because you think, okay, your eyes see the bar and you go, okay, I am holding this weight, I can lift this weight. I took it a step further, and I would have someone spot me, right? Because I don't want to get hurt. And I would lift it off the rack, and then I would slowly, as slow as I can, lower it down to my chest, knowing damn well that I couldn't push it back up. And then I would have them gently assist, as light as they could, pushing the weight up so that I could get it up. And then I would put it back. But that helped a ton in hitting 225. It actually made 225 feel easy once I hit it. So as an actionable step for you, because we deal with practicals on this channel, I want you to go through your routine. I hope you have a routine written down. If you don't, that's the first thing, is to write down your routine. But go through your routine and see where you can modify it according to what you learned today, right? See what exercises you can mark as a cluster set, right? Maybe you put in parentheses beside it just like cluster or something like that. See what exercises you can mark for like drop sets, or see what you can superset to save time, right? If you want to try a giant set, do that. Replace a lot of isolation stuff with the compound stuff, and use a lot of compound movements, and always progressively overload. Like, make a promise to yourself that you're gonna do that, stay on top of that. Make sure you're recording the weights that you push so that you can progressively overload better. If you got value from this video, there's something that you can do which is a win-win for both of us. You can just scroll down and press the subscribe button. I win because I get a brand new awesome subscriber, and you win because anytime I have a new insight or I learn something new or I do some more research or I try something out, I can make a video and directly deliver value to you so you can get my experience. So thank you so much. Bye.